I'm here to spread the good word, and that is about the 2024 Crow movie. And I promise I'm not being contrarian. I promise that I actually did like this movie. Not because people hate it. That's stupid. If you comment that, please don't. If you say this is an L take, or it's rage baiting, or that it's clickbait, please don't. It's not a perfect movie, obviously. It's a blockbuster that is not really a blockbuster because it's going to make no money. So I'm not going to make much money probably, but I want to try it and get some people to see it. Even if my audience is very limited, I thought this was a fun film. And that is despite my expectations. My expectations were for a 90-minute, 2-hour-ish revenge movie that's incredibly generic. And in some ways it is. It is a 2-hour revenge movie that does have some generic things to it. But the number one thing that puts this at least one notch above a lot of revenge movies is the actual characters at its heart. Now, don't get me wrong, they're nothing special. Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs, their characters aren't going to wow you. They're not complex, they're not super deep, but they are a shade better than what this movie probably deserved. This movie, I expected it to be 20 minutes in, we get the death that incites the revenge, just like every revenge movie. And that doesn't happen, which I really liked. So many revenge films make the inexcusable mistake of having the main romance be 1 or 2 scenes at the start of the film and then absolutely nothing later on. And you know what that does? That makes me not care about anything that happens. There are even films that aren't revenge films that make that mistake. I just watched A Good Person with Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman, and it makes that mistake. The whole crux of that film is that Florence Pugh is going through hard times because she caused the deaths of a lot of people by texting and driving. And those people that we're supposed to care about that died, we get one scene of. One. There's one scene where they're at a dinner party, and then Florence Pugh and her fiance or husband, I don't even remember anymore because that movie's already left my brain, are in bed together, and they're like smoking weed and having such a good time, and it's supposed to be that scene where, oh, we love these characters, we just love these people because look at them, they're just having so much fun on their bed this one time. But it's one scene. We need to care about people, and one scene of people is not going to get the job done. Just think about real life. How long does it take you to trust somebody? How long does it take you to be interested in somebody? Typically longer than 5 minutes. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to form paths between people. And that's something that this new film, the 2024 Crow movie, does better than I expected it to. It's still not amazing, but it takes literally half of the movie to dedicate to these characters, to the romance at the heart, so that when the actual death occurs and the revenge starts, you care more about the revenge because it took its time, and the action hits harder because it took its time.
What's the worst thing you've ever done?
I saw things. I shouldn't have seen any of it.
It isn't just 10 or 15 or 20 minutes of trying to force you to like these people. It's an hour of, hey, they're at a rehab center. Look, they met each other here. He drew her naked in his weird Slenderman black crayon drawings, which is very weird of you. Very weird. Don't draw people nude if you just met them at lunch at a rehab center 20 minutes ago. That should be a rule. Even if it is very, very emo in a like high school hot topic kind of way, that's I found slightly charming. I don't know why. Typically this type of like really emotional, let your hair down, Peter Parker and Spider-Man 3 type of thing is kind of cringe. For example, on the bridge, FKA Twigs is like, if I jumped in, then would you jump in after me? And he goes, yeah. How long do you think it would take for teenagers to line up at our grave and leave cigarettes and whiskey? Bro, this is so emo. You know, if it was like 1 or 2 moments of that, it'd probably be cringe, unless it was driven by something. But it's like literally the entire 2-hour runtime is just the most emo, let your hair down, black eyeliner type of thing you could possibly imagine. And I found that kind of charming this time around. I don't know particularly why it works in this and why it might not work in something else. And maybe it's just because I liked Bill Skarsgård in it. I don't know. I think he's really, really good in this, actually. He gives like 3 very distinct performances in this. One before the revenge, where he's just like rehab guy, lover, boyfriend guy. And then The second one is after he dies and gets pseudo-resurrected to go do revenge. He's like kind of doing revenge, but also kind of bad at it. And that's a completely different character. And then the third one is when he gets resurrected again as like the Black Crow variant, and he's just like sicko mode, badass, insano style Joker guy. And I thought he pulled that off pretty well. They're all distinct kind of variations of himself, even if his Russian accent does poke through a couple of times.
Please don't do this!
Another good symptom of spending so much time with these characters is that the action hits harder. Yeah, it's kind of CG bloody at times, a lot of times, I admit. But because we spent half the film just dedicated to a romance, that action hits a lot harder and it's way more fun. Action should be like that. Action in film needs to be short, quick burst driven by something. And this film does both of those things pretty well. It's always driven by something. For example, the very first big action scene is when he first gets resurrected. He's on the floor of this apartment, he wakes up and there's a cop there, and the cop shoots him and he falls and he gets up and they have this kind of really gnarly hand-to-hand fight scene with a knife and a gun. And it's brutal, it's graphic, and it's quick and done. And that works great because it has motivation for one. He wakes up, there's a cop there, the cop is evil, he shoots him, they gotta fight. And then two, it's quick and it's simple to understand. Hand-to-hand fights, stabbing, he heals, boom, easy, done. Couple minutes in and out, it's graphic, there's blood everywhere, love it. All but one fight scene in this film is like that. Every fight scene in this is very quick, it's very pointed, and it's very driven. The only fight scene that isn't is this insane, over-the-top craziness that happens at the opera, where he has this like mini katana and he's slicing and effing dicing people up. He even puts the blade in someone's mouth and chops their jaw in half. It was nuts. I was laughing hysterically. I don't know what the two people down at the front were thinking of me at the top, but I was wheezing with laughter at the end. Wheezing, because it was so over the top and fun. I had a blast. It's also a surprisingly stylish movie. I've seen a lot of people unfairly comparing again to the old film, which is really grimy, gritty, grungy, grounded. Lots of G words to describe that film. And this one takes a completely different approach for the best. You don't want to try and replicate what they did in 1994. So I liked that they took a much more slick and polished approach to this film, which I know a lot of people are going to dislike because it is so different. And it is so slick, it's so colorful, it's so stylish, and maybe too much at times for this subject matter. Really solid camera work in this. There's another great shot that stood out of the villain of the film sitting in this like opera house listening to this piano playing. And it's this stark image of him sitting all alone in the middle of this sea of chairs. Great looking shot. The main villain of the film has this like little whisper thing. So he whispers to people, and then their eyes roll back. And they either murder people or they murder themselves. Because he's like a demon or something. He signed a deal with Satan. I get why they want to kill him, but also, is that it? But of course, there's like a billion henchmen that our anti-hero has to get through to get to him, and he just offs them all one at a time, and it becomes a little bit more generic in that second half because, again, we spent so much time in the relationship at the first half that the second half does kind of fall into those cliches of a genre revenge movie. You go through this guy to get to this guy, to get to this guy, to get to this guy, to get to the guy at the top. And that's fine. It is what it is. It's just how these movies are. But after dedicating so much time in the first half, it does feel like a bit of a step down, especially when the first half was also very weird. And this is something I don't know if I liked or not, but there's a couple of scenes in this rehab center, and it's the weirdest recovery center I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It's run like a boot camp or a prison or both. It's a recovery center, a boot camp for the military, and a prison. There's scenes when they're doing like AA meetings in a little circle and they're, can you please talk to us? You just have to get it off your chest. Hard cut to them in the yard, literally in the yard, doing like jumping jacks with prison guards screaming in their ears? Like, what? It was like Shawshank Redemption for 10 minutes. I didn't know what was going on.
What's the first thing you liked about me?
I thought that you were quite brilliantly broken.
The third act especially, I feel like, really drags. I mean, you have to get the big bad guy, of course. and it just takes so long to get to him. And then once they get to him, it was a little anticlimactic after he decapitates 2 people in the opera and flings their head into the crowd, met with hysterical laughter on my part. Him just pushing a guy out a window and then letting demon hands grab him and pull him into the underworld, it felt a little anticlimactic. I don't know what I would want or expect other than that, but after such a crazy, awesome action sequence, an A+ action sequence, that was like, oh, all right. And speaking of negatives, he's also the guy that just delivers all the exposition. Every scene he's in is literally just the craziest exposition dumps you could possibly imagine. There's one girl who has a video of him doing evil deeds, which you can't even really tell he's doing evil deeds, but the whole thing is like, he wants to kill the people that took the video or were in the room that saw him doing evil deeds so that people didn't know that he did it, but then people also didn't believe it. It was very weird. But he wants to get the video on the first girl that he captures. He does a little whisper thing to, and she kills herself. But right before that, he delivers this entire monologue about exactly who he is. I'm not supposed to be here. I've lived here for centuries, taking innocent girls like you down to hell because Satan loves the innocent people. The bad people he gets already, but the innocent people are the people he wants. So I send them to him. Souls for a soul. So that's how I've been here for so long. And now you die and the scene's over. And I was like, bro, what? But this all leads to the one major negative I have. And I mean, the other ones are pretty bad too. I mean, not like horrible, but pretty bad. The exposition stuff is pretty bad. And that's FKA Twigs. And I didn't want to say it. I feel bad. I don't want to pick on her because I like her. I like her music. I think she's genuinely like a cool person. I don't know, but she seems like a cool person. But I didn't like her in this. There's a couple scenes, especially in the prison rehab boot camp, where she is just not that good. And unfortunately, some of what a character ends up being is dependent on a performance. Like I said, Bill Skarsgård gives 3 very distinct and interesting performances that bring a lot to that character that could have been maybe underwritten without his performance, because he's bringing so much to each individual character, and that does such wonders for his overall arc. You can see very clearly where he started and where he ended and how he's changed because of how he plays the character. FKA Twigs, on the other hand, is just this sleepy kind of performance that just gives nothing to this character at all. Yes, I like their romance, probably mainly because Bill is selling it so well, but at the end of the day, I was just like, girl, could you give me something? I really believe if we had a stronger performance from that character, this could have been a genuinely solid movie. And it is pretty fun in its own right. It has its merits, it has its charms, and there's actually a message that it's communicating as well that I didn't talk about, which is the slow decay of things. For better or worse, things start slowly. And I was kind of alluding to that when I was talking about trusting people or building rapport with people, building relationships. You can't do it in 5 minutes. It's a slow roll, you know? It might start like one conversation or one look. You go to the gym, you make eye contact with somebody. The next time, you make eye contact and do a little nod. The next time, you go and say, hi, hey, I'm Rendan. You are hot person at the gym. I don't know. Next time, another conversation, a longer conversation. Next time, maybe get their number. Slow roll into more deep questions. And that's what this is all about. It's about addiction and how that starts off slow. And it's about these people that are in the clutches of this demon character, all his henchmen. There's a great scene in the opera with one of his henchmen, and she's looking at Bill Skarsgård right before she gets decapitated. And she's like, it didn't start this way. It started off easy. It started off simple. It started without me being a part of it, and then slowly, the more time you spend doing it, and the more time you spend hearing about it, suddenly you're in it, and you're in too deep, and there's no way out. He's lost his girlfriend, he's lost his sense of self, he's lost his morals, he's lost his identity. He's just this killing machine at the end, whose sole purpose is to butcher everybody that was involved with the death of his girlfriend. Because that's who he's become. It's a slow decay into this person. He started off just killing that one police officer. Okay, that was, oh man, that wasn't pleasant. I got hurt. And then it's, okay, I killed a couple other guys. Okay, I shotgunned a couple other guys. All right, I just killed 45 people at an opera.
Look at what you've become. You know that love promises only pain.
You have to be careful. Things can start in an innocent place, but very quickly, without you even really noticing, descend into something very not innocent. Kind of an interesting message for the Crow of all things. It would have worked so much better if FKA Twigs was better, because she is supposed to be the cornerstone of this film. She's the reason that he descends into madness. She's the reason that he is better at the start. And at the end, she survives because of him. And it should have been such a tragic and bittersweet moment. And then she died before her time, before she could actually absolve herself of her sins, before she could grow. And he is that factor to help her overcome that. He's the person that's supposed to be that character that gets her to where she's supposed to be. And yet, he does, and the movie ruins it at the last second. The whole point is thrown out the window when he says it's almost worth it. It's almost everything. No, it should be everything.
How many people have you loved?
I'll never be alone.
Because this is called The Crow, it's going to get comparisons to a film that is so different stylistically, so different tonally, and so different in even its action that it's incomparable. And yet, people are going to say this is much worse than it is because they have attachments to that film, and that's completely unfair, I think. I think it's fine.